Mom, apple pie, baseball. These are things we traditionally think of as American, right? Personally, I think of our accomplishments to describe the uniquely American experience. We're here at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where 50 years ago, 3 brave astronauts strapped into a Saturn V rocket blasted off to the moon, forever changing humanity's story arc. 16 years before that though, America's sports car was born, and it's closely tied to the space program. We're here to check out the latest version of that sports car in the 2020 Chevrolet Corvette Convertible. In 1953, Chevrolet introduced the Corvette, a small convertible sports car, to compete against those little roadsters that GIs were falling in love with overseas. America's first astronaut, Alan Shepard, had a '57 Vette, just like my mom's. A decade later, the edgier second generation was introduced, along with the iconic Stingray name. And this one, in particular, used to be Neil Armstrong's. Come on, how cool is that? We just happen to have a '66, this same color, rotating above the Edmunds reception desks too. The third generation C3 showed up just as the Apollo program hit its stride in 1968. There's a famous photo of the Apollo 12 astronauts posing with their custom gold 427 Stingrays. Starting in 1984, the C4 ensured the 80s and 90s were rad. The C5 Vette ran from 97 to 2004, and we had a wonderful Z06 from 2002 in our long-term fleet. The true 21st century Corvettes started with the C6 and C7s, which dramatically increased the technology and performance quotient. That brings us to the all-new 8th generation, which represents the biggest change in the Corvette's history. We showed you the Stingray Coupe over the summer, and for the most part, this convertible is mechanically identical. Under this deck lid is the same 6.2-liter, naturally aspirated pushrod V8 that puts out 495 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque. Attached to that is an 8-speed automated dual-clutch transmission. Sadly, it doesn't sound like we're gonna get a manual this time around. There are some design challenges that go along with a mid-engine sports car like this. And if you look at something like, let's say the Lamborghini Diablo Spider, where the deck looks really huge and heavy and the seating position is way too far forward. That is not the case with the Corvette Convertible. They styled it impeccably, so it looks almost like the coupe. These nacelles here that run from the headrest all the way to the tail really break up some of that space, and these intersecting lines and deep creases lighten that visual weight. Also helping to break up some of that visual weight is this black fascia down here, which kind of helps it not look as heavy and chunky as it normally would. One thing that I was really concerned with the design of this new C8 Corvette was this really big center thing with all the buttons on it. They're all climate controls, so it sort of makes sense, but I have to say this, in photos it looks really awkward. In practice, sitting here, it's actually pretty good. I mean, you have everything at your command. Maybe they could have slimmed it down with fewer buttons, but I'm sorry, it kind of works. You also have this nice little handrest here for the dial controller, and this squared off steering wheel actually feels pretty good. I have to say, it might be fulfilling some of my Formula One driver aspirations. Overall, the interior has a nice snug feel without feeling too cramped. There are obviously a lot of challenges when it comes to converting a coupe to a convertible, so I'm here with Ed Piatek, Chief Engineer for the Corvette. Ed, what kind of challenges did you run into with this mid-engine Corvette?
Well, typically you have a lot of challenges from a structure standpoint if you're removing the roof from a coupe that uses the roof as a load path. But in the case of all the Corvettes going back to the 6th generation car, they've all effectively been convertibles. They all have removable roof panels, so we can't count on the roof. So when we do a car like this, we use a tunnel dominant structure. If you took a look at the underbody of the car, you'll see we've got a really big tunnel section, and that gives it sort of the backbone that gives you great bending and torsional stiffness. So for us to do a convertible, it's not as big a challenge as far as having to remediate that and put Band-Aids on the car to get the structure back.
So that's all really impressive, but something I heard earlier is even more impressive. How much more does this convertible weigh than the coupe?
We're still in the final validation phases, so I don't have an exact number, but it's going to be a less than 100 pounds difference from coupe to convertible, which is why we think the acceleration performance that everyone's excited about for the coupe will carry right over into the convertible.
That's amazing, considering that a lot of convertibles weigh several hundred pounds more than their coupe counterparts. Thanks a lot, Ed.
Hey, thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Can't wait to drive it.
It's great.
I'm here with Kurt Benyon, Chief Designer of the C8 Corvette. What were your main challenges with the C8?
Well, I would tell you, in developing this convertible top, the mechanization was something that we started on very early. There's certain things that we wanted to maintain in the design. We wanted to maintain the shoulders and the quarters, but also we wanted to maintain some surfacing that led up to those nacelles. So we started with a small patch of surface, and we continued to develop that 5-bar link system to give us this tapered upper. But to work around that early surface, we didn't even know what the car was going to look like as a whole, but we knew we wanted these particular elements in the design.
But a lot of the challenges for mid-engine is the back end looks really heavy and the passenger compartment looks like it's squished too far forward.
Right.
How did you solve that?
A lot of that depends on just where you place that windshield. And you know, and kind of like with the windshield assembly and your wiper assembly, the cowl panel and that, we like that to be over center of axle, center of the front wheel. We feel that for this car that gives us the best proportion. It's that right amount of reach where it doesn't look like it's crammed, but it's reaching forward. And then it gives us just enough room in the back to kind of stretch things out and still give that forward, you know, what we call a cockpit forward accent. But in doing so, that allows us to lean out the car, basically.
Well, it's a pleasure to see it in the flesh. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
If you ask me, the Corvette Convertible is just as sharp as the coupe. And it's also as relatively affordable, costing $7,500 more. Expect a starting price of around $67,000 when it goes on sale in March of 2020. I'm not completely convinced it's worth shelling out the extra money for the convertible, since the coupe already has a removable Targa roof. Whether you choose the coupe or the convertible, you're pretty much guaranteed you're going to be driving the new hotness for at least a couple months. That's it from the Corvette Convertible unveil at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. If you thought we'd come here and not check out the astronaut experience, you're wrong. For sticking around this long, here's a bonus, some snippets from astronaut camp. Woohoo! Come on, Doug, let's go steal a rocket. Let's drive along.